Welcome to the Home Building Hub, your essential podcast guide to building your new home. Hosted by industry experts Colin Bischoff and Darren Brennan, this conversational podcast will help better educate you about all things new home building so you can avoid costly mistakes and enjoy your building experience to the fullest, no matter which home builder you choose.
Hey there folks, Colin here and welcome to another episode of the Home Building Hub, here with co-host Darren Brennan as always. And today we're going to be covering a really simple topic for us and trying to highlight for you and answer the question, or help you answer the question, should you be buying before 7-star pricing or 7-star energy comes into play? So Darren, this is something that we've touched on a few times. We've introduced what 7-star energy rating is and what to expect, and livable housing and the changes coming into at least Victoria next year. Some states already have a couple of those in place. But I think one of the things that we realised recently, Darren, is people are not aware of the significant cost and implication or impact on their home as a result of these changes. And those people sitting on the sidelines right now, we want to, I guess, explain to you the pros and the cons of doing that. And that's it. It'll be a nice, short, sharp episode, but just give people some food for thought.
Absolutely, Colin. I guess maybe quickly I'll kick off by what is 7-star? What does that actually mean? So, and what is livable housing? So 7-star is the new regulation coming in, meaning that your house has to be more energy efficient. So it's going to mean things like double glazing of windows, potentially smaller windows. You're going to have additional insulation in your home. You're going to need to have solar, most likely, on your home, depending on the energy efficiency to offset any electricity usage. So these are coming into play in Victoria on the 1st of May. And then add to that the livable housing code. So what basically the government's trying to encourage is that homes become more wheelchair friendly, essentially. And so there's a bit more space for people around bathrooms and stuff, so wider hallways, etc., for a wheelchair to get through, or for someone with a one of those sort of carts that they might be, I don't know what they're actually called. Funny enough, I was with my mum yesterday and she's got one at the moment because she's got a bit of a crook hip. But, the carts that you see older people walking around with potentially. So they're going to need wider hallways for that. You're going to have a transition from outside your home into the home. So a lot of builders are going to end up having a flat slab in their garage, so there'll no longer be a step down. So that'll allow for that transition area. Potentially provisions for handrails if required, etc. So those changes are all coming into play. And I guess the reality is if you add more to your home, it's going to cost more to build. So that's the juggle in the short term. The long term, I guess, is there's going to certainly be some savings for keeping your home hot and, with your heater and how often you need to put your cooling system, etc. on. So there's certainly some advantages there. But obviously those things come at a cost, Cole. So maybe what do you think about some of the cons, I guess? So let's go against the negatives of what impact that's going to have on people. And then I'll talk about some of the positives, I guess.
Yeah, no worries at all. So I think, Darren, the negatives are pretty clear to us. And what I mean by us is those of us in the industry. But I actually think that a lot of people out there, new home buyers, are not necessarily aware of what's coming and not factoring that in. We did an episode on that titled versus non-titled land, and it really highlighted to me that people are probably not educated on this 7-star and livable housing. And it's not that you need to know the intricacies of what's going in and what's going out and that sort of stuff. It's more around just understanding it's going to cost, 20K plus potentially. It could be 30, it could be 15, but it's going to cost a lot of money to upgrade to 7-star.
Cole, on some big houses. We're talking significant size houses, 50, 60, 70 square homes. And some of those costs are in excess of 50 grand.
Yeah, right.
It's big money. It's big money.
Well, it is. I think what concerned me and the reason for this podcast is just to, or this episode, I should say, is just to highlight to you guys, you need to factor that in. If you've got advice coming from a family member or a friend or a finance broker or all of the above telling you, look, just hold off, interest rates will get back to normal and blah, 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 that's fine. But the question I would ask you is, do they understand what is about to come mid next year or just pre that in terms of these additional costs for 7-star, additional, I guess, restrictions really for the livable housing? So you'll talk about the positives of it. I guess I'm going to highlight one thing, Darren, is due to wider hallways and turning circles in toilets and things like that we need to address, we probably can't fit a 4-bedroom home on a little lot anymore. It's going to be down to a 3-bedroom home. Or if it's 4-bedroom, they're going to be even smaller, So the design you can get away with today that doesn't have, the requirements of livable housing is severe, I guess, is so much less impacted. You can have a 4-bedder on a small lot and get away with it. And 4 bed's going to probably yield you a better rent if you're an investor. 4 bed's going to allow one of your children to have their own room rather than, buddy up with a brother or a sister. Like, these are really important things. So whilst the interest rate may be high and people are working out whether they can or cannot afford something, waiting until May next year, just a personal opinion, I think you need to factor in and consider is the cost of what it's going to be design wise and financially next year going to outweigh the interest rate, I guess, impact right now here today. So if you've got that, we always say this, Darren, but if you've got the ability to purchase a house now and your broker's giving you a green light, and in this case, they've said you can borrow, but let's just wait. My advice, and again, we don't offer financial advice and that sort of stuff. It's just my opinion, perhaps, Darren, I should say. You should really seriously look at getting in the next 3 months or so before these come into play. Okay, there'll be some form of, I guess, a bit of a rare commodity, these houses that we can build and get away with today, in terms of the constraints. Okay, they're obviously positives. Darren will cover that. So yeah, they're probably the main deterrents for me, Daz. I just think there are too many people sitting on the sidelines who do not understand the impact of what's about to come their way if they wait to pick a design post May 2024. That's
Yeah, I
in
think that
Victoria, that is.
I think that squeeze on people's finances right now, if you're all of a sudden having to add 20, 25 grand to the cost of a build, that's just made it
Mm.
even harder to be able to afford. Um, again, who knows where the interest rates, I think we all thought interest rates are sort of at their peak, and now is probably a little bit of, are they, or maybe they're going to go up again, and, what
Mm.
does that look like? So, but either way, I mean, if interest rates go up, if you go up, you've got $600,000 loan, interest rates go up by 0.25%, you're talking at about $100 a month, maybe just over. So 6 months out, it's cost you $600 more because of that interest rate rise. But if you look at, if it costs in 6 months' time, it's going to cost you 20 grand more to buy the house.
Mm.
Like, so if you're trading off those costs, it's significant, in the long term. So, I certainly understand where you're coming from there, Cole.
Probably, sorry, Daz, the one thing I didn't mention was the land component, which is obviously pretty important. You talked about 7-star, and it really will impact the orientation of your land is going to significantly impact what you can and cannot do with your design. So if you've got a block, that you already own, like today, you really shouldn't be waiting. You need to go in and see what you can get now in the next few months, before those regs come into play, and then you'll be subject to the restrictions of the 7-star, smaller windows, and all that sort of stuff. So just be mindful of that. I didn't mention that one, Darren. Yeah.
No, for sure, mate, for sure. I guess, yeah. So some of the pros, I guess, would be you're going to have a 7-star rated home, so the house is going to be more comfortable to live in. From a uh, coldness and warmness factor, I guess. So the house isn't going to get as cold, and it's certainly not going to get as warm. So understanding that's the case is going to be really great. You're going to have, in terms of the livable housing stuff, you're going to have a home that if you're, in that home for a long time, and then at some stage you might need to be in a wheelchair, you might need one of those little trolleys to push around, and you might need that bit of extra space. You're not bashing into the walls. Wheelchair can get between the doorways, etc. So that can be really good. Could be even just that, transition into the home, being able to get into the home without having to step up, over a step and trip over and prevent some of those accidents that can happen. So I think there's some positives. In terms of your cost to run that home, so your gas cost and your electricity cost is going to be lower because of the fact that you can have solar system on your roof. It'll be all installed, so you're not having to do that after handover, etc. So those are going to be some of the real positives out of that. From an environmental stance, it's a fantastic option, right?
Mm.
I don't think anyone's going to disagree that anything we can do to reduce the use of fossil fuels is going to be good, right? Going to be good. Whether I think even I am more skeptical around all that stuff, Cole. I've got to be honest.
Mm.
Around global warming and all the rest of it. But I sit there going, look, I'm not certainly all with or all against, but I'm somewhere in the middle there. But I think it's got to be a positive thing. I just put solar on my own house for the same sort of reasons: save money, help the environment. So, hopefully those things will certainly come into fruition and help people out. One more I was thinking of there too, but it might have slipped away on me. But I think there's certainly positives. What I was going to say, sorry, is if someone's considering buying your home versus buying your neighbour's home, and yours is 7 stars and theirs is 6, I'd like to think you're going to get a better ticket value on your home. So hopefully, even though it's cost you more, hopefully the market sees your home as worth more money because it's going to save them money in the long run of living there and operating there, etc. So I would see those as being some of the real positives to come out of the new regulations. I guess that brings us back to our conclusion then, Cole. So
Mm.
does someone wait, or does someone, make the decision and jump in earlier before that date? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think obviously we structured this episode to be steadfast on one or the other. I was obviously team build now, but I look at it, to be honest, my personal view is I look at it both ways. I see the environmental benefits, and we have to move to a 7 star, if not better. There's a lot of things we need to do for our planet, and this is a step that other countries have made, well before us. And so something I think that after May next year, it'll become the norm. And I think that's a good thing. The point for me probably remains is that if you've got an opportunity now to get in before that time frame, you've got to weigh up: is it, having the 7 star in my home worth it, or am I better off to get slightly bigger bedrooms, and be subject to the current conditions or the current requirements, which is 6 star energy and not having livable housing restrictions. I actually think that the livable housing benefits, they come from a really good place, and that is essentially you can buy yourself a house and it's generally for the elderly, Daz, but someone has an accident or is they're wheelchair bound as a result, they can stay in the home that they purchased and that they built, because it's been provisioned for, and I think for a lot of people that's a really positive thing. I have actually heard some clients say the complete opposite to that. They say, well, I don't want a livable home, a livable housing home. I don't want wider hallways. I don't want a ramp into my
Yeah,
house, etc. Because I'm 25 years old or I'm 35 years old and I don't need it.
yeah,
So I guess I don't want to sit on one side or the other, but I understand where it comes from. I think it comes from a good place, and in the long run, as we always say, like, it'll be the norm for everyone. There's this window of opportunity right now, the next 5 6 months, probably a bit less than that, I'd say, by the time you wrap things up with your contract and whatever, in Victoria. I think if it was me, I'd be taking advantage of building now, getting the regs that are available today, because I can probably get a bit more space and a bit more bang for buck in the actual floor plan and the design, and of course the price. What about yourself?
my opinion is probably not dissimilar to you, Cole, in that respect. Some of the design changes. I look at some of the bigger homes that we build. Some of those homes we may not be able to build in that fashion anymore, particularly based on certain orientations. So you may have your heart set on a particular home, and that's going to be the challenging bit, right? So today you got your heart set on a particular home, but you just don't want to bite the bullet yet, and make that decision to move ahead, and then you make the decision middle of next year and you can't have the house anymore, and you're going to be pretty damn disappointed, particularly if you're not educated on that. So, all of a sudden, the house of your dreams has gone out the window because your block of land doesn't provision for that house in that orientation. So I think that's going to be a big one.
Mm.
Um, I'm definitely a fan of heading towards 7 star in terms of what it does do environmentally, saving on your bills, etc., making the house more comfortable to live in. They're all positives for sure. The ability to deliver that on certain lots is going to be really challenging moving forward with certain designs. And then there'll be other designs that they'll need absolutely minimal to get to 7-star. And then, so the cost is going to be pretty minimal in there. And we'll probably orientate on most lots really well. So, if that house design is the one you're currently looking at, great. Fantastic, and maybe you don't have to make that decision yet, but get some advice around that as soon as you can, so that you're making a very well educated decision. And we often say that, Cole, is get in and talk to the sales consultant. If they're not giving you the right advice, you're not comfortable with that, you can always reach out to ourselves, and we can help you a little bit in that space as well. So feel free to message us, and we can certainly help you there. And help guide you, I guess. And again, it's our opinions on how that's best going to work, I guess. So, yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of insight. But, yeah, I would suggest there's going to be quite a few people making a decision to build between now and the 1st of May, Cole. So hopefully we'll see plenty of people out in the market there ready to make a decision.
Yeah, good point. I think there will be a mad rush pre-May in Victoria again, I have to say, but so if you are going to think about it, jump in maybe in Feb or March before that absolute mad rush comes in. Yeah.
There definitely was a mad rush in Queensland as well. So they've had a real push to get theirs through. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to say it was the end of October they had to have contracts issued, etc. So, they've been really flying up there. I know our team up there has had a few very good months of additional people walking through the front door purchasing a new home because of that regulation and trying to get in early. So
yeah, no, that's good. I think good feedback. Good for you guys. Just to take the other side on board and I guess let us give you a bit more insight and food for thought, as we said. So, as always, guys, if you've enjoyed the content, please leave us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're on. If you have any feedback, jump on the website, homebuildinghub.com.au. There's a little contact us section there. You can leave a question, some feedback, etc., which we're enjoying. We're getting a little bit of that now, Darren, which is great. And I guess if you don't know myself or Darren, you haven't really listened to too many episodes. If you want to learn a bit more about us and about what this podcast is all about, why we're here, why we're doing it, go back to episode 1. There's a bit of an intro on the two of us. I think it goes for maybe 10 minutes or so, and that is about all, Daz. We might leave it there, hey? So thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks for listening to the Home Building Hub. As part of the podcast, we have to be a little careful to cover ourselves on a legal standpoint. So we do have a disclaimer. Whilst we're all about providing value to you, this podcast should not be considered legal or financial advice. It does contain general information only, and you should seek out independent professional advice on your own personal situation before you make any legal or financial decisions.